Hello to everyone out there in the World Wide Web. I'm Rose Chamberlain, and I'm going to read my blog for you today. And this blog is about my journey and my experience with the Mrs. Colorado America Pageant and how it's changed my life. So let me get started. As I sit here reflecting back to 2014, my journey across the stage to compete in the Mrs. Colorado America pageant, I realize it was truly a fairy tale come to life. I'll never forget my first introduction to the pageant. Shelley Moorhead Still walked into our Coffee and Connections meeting with this supreme confidence and a beautiful smile on her face as she introduced herself. She proudly announced that she would be representing her community in the Mrs. Colorado America pageant, and I couldn't wait to buy my ticket to watch her compete. The night of the pageant, my anxiety flared, and I probably was more nervous than some of the women on the stage. I couldn't believe I was about to witness an event I'd only dreamt about for the past few years. The truth was, I had actually inquired about being in the Mrs. Colorado America pageant when I was 40 years old. But I hung up after speaking to the director for less than 5 minutes. For some reason, I was ashamed. I was ashamed of myself and never told anyone I made that phone call. But watching Shelley and the other contestants that night, I was mesmerized by the sequin dresses, the glow on the ladies' faces as they glided across the opera house, and most of all, the courage and confidence that each lady exuded. My first time reading. Shelley and I remained friends after the pageant, after April. In fact, we became great friends. As we were having lunch and chatting one afternoon, I confessed that I had always wanted to be in a pageant. And that's when she convinced me to represent my community in the Mrs. Colorado America pageant as Mrs. Longmont 2014. Me in a pageant. I would be 50 years old, I thought to myself. I'm overweight. I walk like a duck. I don't have the class. And then I thought and started asking myself questions. Do I have the class and confidence to be on that amazing stage with more than 60 beautiful women? Am I deserving of it? The reality, I realized, was yes. I deserved to be on that stage with all those talented and beautiful ladies. I'll never forget December 23rd, 2014. I opened my mailbox and saw the letter from the Mrs. Colorado America pageant 2014. I was so afraid to open it. I thought for a moment about how I was going to feel if they rejected me. I started silently putting myself down and saying that I wouldn't blame them and that I wasn't pageant material. Oh my God. My life changed that moment as I read the letter from the director, Emily Stark. She welcomed me to the Mrs. Colorado American pageant as Mrs. Longmont 2014. I could go on and telling you how hard I worked to promote myself in the community, all the fundraising and promotional things I did, and all about the weight loss. But let's move forward to the pageant week. Pageant week is the second week in April when the contestants come together and meet and compete. It's a time when you get to know the other contestants, and it's where I truly, truly found myself. I found my confidence and the love for my life and a desire for self-care. I walked away with the title Mrs. Congeniality 2014 at the age of 50. But most importantly, I gained respect for the pageants and a whole new family that I'll have for life. I went on to compete for Mrs. Colorado America as Mrs. Longmont in 2015, where I once again made new friends to add to my family. I no longer compete, but you will find me behind the scenes assisting all my beautiful, sweet sisters as they prepare to glide across the stage to compete for that gorgeous crown. I even traveled to Las Vegas each year to cheer, scream, and applaud for Mrs. Colorado America as she competes for the Mrs. America title. I am a pageant sister for life for these women. Life is constantly changing, and we tend to put our dreams aside. But please do yourself a favor. Dust off your dreams. Make them happen at any age. Pageant or not, dust off your dreams.